Hi everyone, my name is Kira, and in this video, I want to talk to you about identity disturbance. Identity disturbance is a term that is used in the context of borderline personality disorder, BPD, and it's used to describe what is one of the core features and dimensions, confusing and challenging dimensions of BPD, which is this very unstable sense of self. A lot of people with BPD feel like they don't know who they actually are. And when you don't know yourself, it's actually really hard to love yourself. When people would tell me that I just had to love myself, I was like, but I don't even know myself. So how could I love myself? I'm virtually a stranger to me. And I think a lot of people with BPD feel that way, at least many of the people that I've spoken to talk about feeling like they don't know who they are without other people. Um, they feel like they're always kind of being chameleon-like or adapting to kind of fit the situation or the people that they're with. And I know this is true for myself, and I think many people have spoken about this as well. When you have BPD, there's just this like kind of nearly constant sense of loneliness and emptiness. And now that I'm older and I've done a lot of work on this, it's different than just the normal, I want to say like human condition type of loneliness, because all of us feel that on some level, that ache and that yearning for connection, for love, for wonder, for awe. But it's different than that. It's way, way different than that. So first, let's talk about how this can show up in people's lives. So people with BPD are very reliant on the opinions and the feedback and the mirroring. I never say that word right. There's a few words I always say weirdly, and mirror is one of them, but you know what I'm talking about, a reflective surface. Like people with BPD, our whole sense of self can feel as if it is decided by how those around us treat us. Now, what makes this challenging is a couple things. One, we're not always getting strong feedback from people, positive or negative. Like sometimes you are just living life and no one is giving you these huge emotional reflections, again, positive or negative. And for someone with BPD, it's like we can just feel so starving for feedback. It's like we don't know who we are if we're alone, emotionally alone, even if we're not physically alone. And so we feel as if we're like invisible or not there or empty. And that's a really difficult way to feel. The second thing is it doesn't really last. Like, even if we get really positive feedback from people, it's not as if that carries you through the rest of your life. You're always going to need more. And I don't want to pathologize this experience because all of us need warmth and care and validation and positive reflections from the people in our life. If you went your whole life and no one ever told you they cared about you or you did a good job on something or they enjoyed spending time with you, that would be pretty sad if you never had that in your whole life. And even if someone said that to you last year, doesn't mean it would be nice to hear it this year. Hopefully that's not an annual thing, but you know what I mean? Like, it's normal to not have one compliment do you for your entire life. But at the same time, I think people with BPD, as they start to become more aware, as they start to become more self-aware, notice, as I did, I felt like I was like an empty well. Like there was just this, it was like no matter how much was poured into me, how much validation or love or positive reflections and feedback, it was never enough. Like maybe for a little bit it would be, but it wasn't doing much to change this deep sense of inadequacy that I had and this deep feeling of emptiness. So just to recap that point, we feel as if we don't know who we are without the reflections of other people. And that makes life challenging because one, we're not always getting many reflections at all. And sometimes they're not positive. I didn't mention that as well. Sometimes people are not always singing our praises and we can be very vulnerable to that as well. And the other point was that even when you are receiving positive reflections, it doesn't do that much on a fundamental level in terms of, again, this, I'm not talking about the human condition feeling of loneliness, like this sense of really like not knowing who you are and not feeling like you are a real person. The second thing about this unstable sense of self is a lot of people with BPD have said that they feel chameleon-like. They are so good at masking and mirroring. I don't know if I said it right that time either. And kind of performing, because so much of our sense of self is hinged on how other people receive us, what they think of us. And that makes us very focused on being liked. It makes the stakes of being liked feel really high, because what we want more than anything is to be connected, to connect with people and to feel accepted by them. So people with BPD are so good at reading a room and kind of intuiting how they have to be liked by the people in that room. They have to be funny, extroverted, more soft-spoken, more intellectual, really friendly, really helpful. I wasn't good at connecting with people because I didn't know how to be myself, but I was really good at being who I thought they wanted me to be so that I could feel liked by them. And as I got older, I realized part of why I felt so lonely was because I wasn't actually connecting with people. I was performing for them in social situations. And it's actually as if the fear of not feeling connected and not feeling liked is what stops us, or what prevents us, from feeling actually connected to people and actually known by them. It's not as if I was trying to be fake. I want to say that because I think a lot of people who struggle with this fear that they're being fake or disingenuous or manipulative. It was almost as if when I was a teen, it was like I lived life from the space behind someone else's eyes. Like I was trying to live life imagining, how do I look to them and how do I want to be perceived by them, instead of living life from in here. And I've just heard from so many people who struggle with this about how strange they feel in that regard, like not really knowing who they are, feeling as if they're just always some version or reflection of what other people want them to be. And the third thing that I think makes this really challenging is when you don't really know who you are and life knocks you back in some way, or you have some sort of challenge, it can feel as if we're in this like tiny little lifeboat, or you're like a tower of blocks that's not very high. What I'm trying to communicate is it feels as if there's not a lot of density in the self, a lot of coherence, and with that, a lot of strength that can help a person be resilient and withstand the challenges and difficulties that come with life. And part of this is when we don't know who we are, it's almost as if the bad experiences, the negative experiences becomes who we are. We are the sum total of all of the awful things happening in our life. And it's kind of like, a tree has roots. And so when wind comes, when the elements rain down on this tree, there is something tethering it to the earth so that even if it bends, it doesn't break and it can withstand a storm. And a person with BPD, it's like this stable sense of self is the roots. When you know who you are and you have a clear sense of your values, your own resilience, your own character, you can withstand a lot in life. And a person with BPD is almost, they're in the process of finding that and building it. And so it makes the challenging parts of life so much harder. So now that we've talked a little bit about what identity disturbance feels like and the different ways that it shows up in life, let's talk about how you can work with this if you are relating to any of what I have described here. This starts with awareness. So if you can just start to notice, when do you context switch? Notice if you're with people or talking to a person and your voice changes, your interest changes, you're suddenly maybe amplifying certain parts of yourself or subduing parts of yourself. And this isn't to shame yourself or get upset with yourself for doing that, but it's just to start to notice when it's happening, to just start building awareness of when do you start to kind of play into a role a bit around certain people. And then ask yourself, do I like this thing? Do I like being this way? Or am I just doing this to feel close to this person? The second thing to do with awareness is to start keeping a journal. Like, find one that you really love and make that a place where you are getting to know yourself. Start keeping track of what energizes you. What are the moments where you actually feel maybe kind of calm? What are you doing? What are you thinking about? Who are you around? Notice what drains you. Like, I think I didn't even consider paying attention to how I felt in terms of my energy, and noticing after what experiences do I feel drained? Do I feel sad? Do I feel not like myself? And what people, experiences, activities do I actually feel replenished? Do I feel calm? It can be as simple as just like going on a walk by yourself or reading, um, or noticing that you actually do feel better after talking to certain people. Because I think when we feel this sense of emptiness and loneliness, we're just so starving and so desperate to be connected, to be involved in something or engaged in something, that we don't actually think about how it feels for us and what effect that it has on us. So start to keep track of those things. A really simple and powerful starting place is to think about what you value. One or two or even three things that you value, and anchor yourself in that, in practicing those values and starting to just notice, how do those show up in your life? How do those influence your choices? How could you live in a way that aligns you more with those values? It's a really simple and powerful way to go from living out here to starting to plant those roots. I work with teenagers and young adults, so the stage of life in which I'm meeting people and working with people is when they are in this process of figuring out who they are and what they care about and their place in the world. So it's okay to not know. Um, think about this like a research and development phase of life. You are figuring it out. And the last thing I want to say is practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. It was so challenging for me to be kind to myself when I didn't think very highly of myself. And I also felt like I didn't know who I was. So rather than feeling like this is just your final state and you're always going to feel this confused and empty, I would really encourage you to think about this as if you are in the process of building it right now. You are actually on a very sacred and beautiful journey, and you are creating, discovering, and finding out who you are and what matters to you. The more that you start to notice what feels true for you, and the more that you actually live life in a way that's aligned with your own values, that is when you start to feel that sense of rooting in the earth. And that sense of loneliness and emptiness starts to go away. Thank you so much for being here today and listening. If you know someone who you think would also appreciate this video, please share it with them. And if you haven't, please subscribe for more videos about BPD. I also will share in the links below information about my work with teenagers and young adults. So all of that will be in the links below. Thank you so much again for being here, and I will see you next time.